Welcome to Safe and Sound. I'm Kirk Webb, filling in for Allison Hefner. Today on the show we have Tami-jo Wilkins from Apache County Public Health and Emergency Preparedness, Kim O'Farrell from Navajo County Public Health and Emergency Preparedness, and Shawna Murphy from Apache County Public Health and Emergency Preparedness. How are you guys doing today?
Good, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So today we're here to talk about our CISM team, and we wanted to kind of talk about what is the team, how did it come about, and kind of a little bit of background information on that.
Well, we're very excited to share information about our Critical Incident Stress Management team. It's a peer support team for first responders and others on the mountain, basically, both Apache and Navajo County side. We have partnerships with everyone from law enforcement to fire to EMS to hospital to schools to clergy, and we have quite a bit of spousal support, which Shawn will talk about here in a few minutes. We have mental health professionals guiding us on both sides of the mountain with our team and our development. And basically our peer team is just a group of these partners trained in critical incident stress management.
So this is a pretty widespread group that's working with any kind of critical incident.
Yes, we have over 100 members on both sides of the mountain that are trained in critical incident stress management.
Nice. So this peer support team, is it exclusive to just public safety?
It's not. Our team is put together of first responders, but we also provide services to spouses and family. We want to make sure that they're taken care of in these incidences also, and how they respond to the first responder and taking care of their needs, but also the families at the same time.
So the concept is not just to treat just the person that's been in a critical incident, but also reaching out to families. And
correct. As you know, first responders go home and they react to the type of incidences or calls that they've had that day, and we want to make sure that the families are involved enough that they know how to respond, they know how to assist them, and then they're also receiving the support from our spousal group, where they can come and talk openly and confidentially in order to help them understand why the first responder is reacting the way they are.
So when families are dealing with these types of incidents and stuff, how do they access resources and things like this? How do they contact the team?
They can contact the Apache County side at 928-333-6430, or they can contact the Navajo County side at 928-524-4742.
Cool. So as we go through some of this stuff, and we're looking at being able to help our first responders and even families that are dealing with critical incidents and things like that, how do we know what some of the signs and symptoms that we need to kind of watch out for?
So some of the physical signs and symptoms that you will see in a first responder or anybody reacting to an incident, they may experience some dizziness, some headaches, visual difficulties, chest pain. They may sweat a lot. That's kind of the physical side. Their cognitive side, they may have recurring dreams, disturbing dreams. They may not be able to concentrate, just having a hard time really focusing in on the task at hand. For emotional, they may feel guilt about the incident or about their reaction to the incident. Anger, they may be irritable. And they also may withdraw from their family and from those around them.
So a lot of these signs and symptoms can be easily detectable. Sometimes they're pretty hard to detect, aren't they?
Sometimes they can be, yes.
So,
And that's where we will go through with the spouses and families and give them the information on, encourage them to speak with them, encourage them to get back to their normal daily lives, but understand that their spouses or other first responders are there for them. And then we also definitely refer them to further behavioral health assistance if needed.
in fact, going back to the, kind of the concept of the critical incident stress management team, why are we finding out that this is so important to work with our first responders and making sure that how did this kind of all come about? And
Well, what happened was a few years ago, Apache County was experiencing a very high rate of suicides across the board. It was youth, people our age and older. It was first responders. It was a variety of individuals. And upon conducting some research on what resources were available out there, we discovered that, especially in Apache County, we were kind of limited in our resources. And then we started doing some digging on what was going on in the first responder world, because I come from a first responder family and I come from a big city. And even in the big city, we didn't have access to critical incident stress management. If something really bad happened, you went through your basic debriefings and then you moved on. There was no follow-up or anything else. And what we discovered was it would be beneficial for both sides of the mountain to have this training in critical incident stress management. And we hosted our first training in November of 2016. And that's where the core group of our partnership was developed. We had 25 individuals go through that class, and that's where we started, and that's where this idea was born, that we have the ability to provide this service to officers involved in a shooting or fire fatality calls or something really bad that happens in a school, or we know that hospital staff goes through stress every single day with some of their traumas. So we have this ability now where if it's requested of us, it's not a 4-hour wait to get somebody up here to talk to that officer who's been involved in the shooting or any of those other examples. We've kept up on some of the statistics, and just looking at USA Today, they indicated an estimated 103 firefighters committed suicide just last year alone, and 146 law enforcement officers. And we're also discovering that that's not real accurate information because it's not always completely reported. So we're trying to take baby steps forward to help our first responders, because our first responders are there to help us. We need to take care of our people.
right, and we're finding out that in fact, even with the fire side, the deaths, we're seeing that suicide has become one of the higher rates of people dying in the fire service rather than line of duty deaths.
Exactly.
And
I think that number was 250 for last year.
yeah, it's concerning, very
Yes.
concerning. And and I know with first responders, a lot of it rolls back to that cumulative stress.
Yes.
It's not just one incident it's the piled on, because I know we don't want to take it home to our families, and so we kind of put it in the back of our mind, and do we deal with it properly? So it's great to be able to see this. And I know you mentioned earlier that you have a wide variety of people that are on this team. In fact, you guys have been out to schools
Yes.
and incidents and different things like that. And so it's not just just exclusive to public safety and things like that.
No,
So,
we have a great team of lead coordinators, which is us. We have a great team of lead responders, which is everybody from police to fire. And then we have a great team of support. We've got quite a few different tiers with our group that accommodates all of the needs that are requested basically in an incident.
So with all of this, and even since the time that you guys, this team first started and whatnot, how has the response been from the public safety community, and are we seeing that they're liking this and seeing some benefits coming from this?
That gives us a great sense of pride. I get goosebumps when I'm asked that question personally. We're super excited because collectively across the mountain, we have almost one member from every police and fire department, and everybody's got the buy-in, and everybody's super excited and supportive, and we're getting more calls for service or for a response. I think since January of 2017, we've responded to 42 incidents across the mountain. And we're very proud of our accomplishments and our progress. As a matter of fact, if I have a second, we could talk about our competitive grant that we won for a Train the Trainer. We won a grant for $12,500 so that we can put some of our trained individuals through a Train the Trainer course. So we have that resource available up here on the mountain for anybody who would like to participate in that class, because those classes are kind of pricey. And if we're kind of self-sufficient that way, it will just make us stronger.
So with that grant, you're able to train people locally.
Yes.
To train other people.
Yes.
To keep this program going and functioning properly.
Yes.
Excellent.
And there are many types of trainings. You know, we've been through the basic and the individual and the group, and we're now having a application for children class coming up. And we'll continue to do those basic and advanced for new members or new agencies that want to come on. But then we're also advancing our team that we have now with additional training.
That's great. So with some of this training, then it's open for general public, families, things like that. Is that?
Some of the training, yes. We have mental health first aid, youth mental health first aid. Apache County hosts a QPR class, which is a question, persuade, refer. Application for kids. We would like our first responders to fill that class, and then if we don't get enough, we will invite members of the public, but we are asking them to go through a vetting process where if something happens, they are going to be using a response. The more people who have the training, the better off the community is.
Right, because you want to be able to fill these classes to full capacity, correct?
Yes, yes.
And the one we do have coming up, which is the application for children, we really want to encourage anyone that works for children. If it's a government agency, school teachers, school staff, anyone that has that contact with students that may respond to it or talk with a student, we want to make sure that they know they're invited.
Because we never know when just a simple saying hello to somebody and actually acknowledging somebody down the road or just in the hallway or things like that, when that simple act may make the biggest difference in that person's life, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So
We have a very dedicated group of very compassionate people who really believe in this process and the program, and they're the reason why we've got the momentum that we have, and we couldn't be more excited or proud.
Well, it sounds like the program, the critical incident stress management, the peer support team is working very well. And it's in conjunction with Apache County, Navajo County, Timber Mesa Fire and Medical, and Pine Top Fire. All these agencies working together to keep this going. So appreciate you being able to be here on the show with us. Thanks for joining us for this segment of Safe and Sound. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Safe and Sound. Now we have Allison Moseley from Pine Top Fire and Shawn Roby from Shawna Police Department. How are you guys today?
Outstanding.
Good, thank you.
Great. So we're here to continue the conversation about our critical incident stress management team, peer support team. So my first question for you guys is, why is peer support so important?
Well, I think it helps to create an understanding between the individuals involved in whatever the incident is, that, you know, we come from the same type of thing and we understand what's going on and we've been on those types of calls or whatever. So I think that's where the peer side of it has an effect versus just the thought process of going and sitting and talking to a counselor or somebody who doesn't understand what it's like on a fire scene or what it's like on crime scene, those kinds of things. So I think that's why peer support is beneficial and helps out a little bit more.
So when we're looking at this type of, I guess you could call it an intervention somewhat, but for support and peer support, why is this so much more successful than other forms of counseling or things like that? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to what Shawn said. We're able to relate a little bit better with each other, and I think maybe be a little more open. Sometimes you don't want to get open and honest with somebody that you don't know or you're not comfortable with. And not only that, but I think there's also the ability to see those changes in people's personalities or a recognition of someone struggling, because we're seeing those people on a regular basis and we're not just listening to what they feel like saying at the counselor's office, but we're getting to see those behavior changes as well.
Right. In fact, I remember when I first was in the fire service, and the first critical incident stress debriefing that and it was kind of like forced to attend to a certain degree. And it was the huggy, touchy-feely kind of incident, and I wasn't super comfortable with that, and I didn't come away, it just didn't feel right to me. And so when this type of this concept of, because it kind of deals more along the lines of sports medicine and keeping people at the top of their game and ready to go to work, but yet still learning how to understand and manage the stresses in life and things like that. So I think there's been a cultural change with all of this going on. And can you describe that for our general public? How would they understand that change? And so.
Well, I think initially, back in the olden days, or however you want to put it, that we were kind of taught, that we signed up for this, and you're going to see some bad stuff, and you're going to just be fine, because you're a tough guy, and we shouldn't have to talk about it because it's just what we do, kind of thing. And as we're bringing up new recruits and stuff, we're starting to more talk about, hey, this is a tough job, and these are some things that will affect your life if you don't do these other things to try to stay resilient and try to work through those problems and be willing to talk about things. And we offer employee assistance programs now to our employees where we can have them go and speak with a counselor if it's beyond, just needing to chat about something, but actually symptoms that they're not able to manage. So,
yeah, I mean, we're losing firefighters and police officers, first responders, veterans. We're losing those at alarming rates to suicide and mental illness through PTSD and those kinds of things. And I think, again, we may have done a good job quite some time ago. I know when I went to the academy, there was a lot of stress management classes, and they did it with the family and those kinds of things. But I think that those kind of backed off because we went into that mindset of, no, we signed up for this, and we just have to, suck it up, buttercup, and move on, and it's just part of doing the job. And now we're trying to get back to that because we're seeing this alarming rise in suicides and, through the years, divorces and alcoholism and all those things that come along with what I call basically filling up our backpack. We go through these incidents, and yes, they're part of doing our job, but they're little stones and rocks that we pick up and put into our backpack. And if we don't learn to unload those or at least break them down a little bit, eventually that's going to blow out and we're going to have a problem. So that's kind of my analogy that it's not mine, but I heard someone else talk about it, but that I use. And it's the same thing. I'm not trying to create a bunch of, as we sometimes say, little quivering bowls of jello in the corner. I'm not trying to create victims here. What I'm trying to do is, like you said, I'm trying to make this person still can be able to continue with their life and their career and be productive and be active instead of going out on a medical retirement and destroying their lives and their careers. So that's what this is about, not the touchy-feely trying to create a victim. That's absolutely not where we want to go with this. It's about making people whole, because I look back on my career and I realize I've had some stumbling blocks and didn't do things perfect in life. So I want to be able to pass this along to the new people coming through and that are in the jobs now so that they can come out the other end and be whole as much as possible.
Right. In fact, our whole goal in our careers is to get the next person coming up behind us to be better than we are.
Right.
And so that we can keep the public safety and everything at its top of its game and be able to help protect the public. I really do like that analogy you use about the backpack and the stones, and and it's not just public safety personnel that deal with that and putting those
Absolutely.
rocks in the backpack, however you want to look at it, and things like that. But that's good information for just about anybody. That hey, at some point, enough is enough, and now how do we deal with this?
It's life. We all have critical incidents. We go through a divorce. We go through the loss of a family member. Different things in life. I mean, those are all critical incidents in normal life. I mean, we compound those because we deal with everybody else's crisis and everybody else's
Right.
bad days. I mean, it's not very often we deal with people on a great day. We usually see them at their worst.
Right.
So, but, and that's the thing is, it affects everyone differently. When you talked about your first incident, where you dealt with that didn't work for you and it wasn't up your alley, but for someone else it might, because we all handle things differently. The other thing is we go through a fire academy and we go through police academy that train us how to be cops and how to do our jobs. But I never got an academy on how to be a dad. I never got an academy on how to pay my bills. I didn't get multiple weeks of life type stuff. That's just stuff you got to deal with as it comes along.
And every kid comes with an instruction manual, right?
Right. Yeah.
I wish.
But no, it's in fact, as we look at life in general and how we deal with it, you're right. Some people need that hug once in a while. Others don't, and so being able to deal with that. I know one of the things that I learned as I went through the training myself, that because a lot of guys will start having nightmares and different things like that, and confusion in their brain and not quite understanding. But I think that's our brain's process of trying to make sense out of insensibility. And until there can be some sense of order, our brain doesn't, and so that's kind of how it, those night visions, terrors, nightmares, whatever you want to call them, that's our brain processing things until it can put in order and file it away, and so things like that. So what are some other things that you tell your guys and crews to be able to look out for, and then how do they make themselves better? What are things that they need to make sure they keep doing?
Well, I think finding some healthy outlets. So whether it's exercise or hiking or whatever you enjoy doing, but to make sure that you're still doing those things while you're trying to process this incident, because having those healthy ways to release some of that tension helps you work through these things. And I think also giving them the symptoms and normalizing that for them, because you are going to have those normal responses where you're going to replay that in your brain, and that's a normal thing for you to have occur for a small period of time. So you kind of have to help them understand that yes, you're going to have some of these symptoms, but there may be a point where those symptoms are going to be not able to be managed, and that's where we have to kind of step up and maybe take the process a little further and talk to someone professionally.
Yeah, I mean, there's lists and lists of symptoms. They're, emotional, physical, spirit. I mean, there's tons of them. I mean, there's just lists. And basically, kind of the way I tell everybody is, you may experience 1, you may experience 5, 10. Better yet, you may experience none of those, and that's okay too. People, unfortunately, when they experience a symptom such as nausea, or they're not sleeping or whatever, they go, wow, something's wrong with me. No, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You are a normal person doing an abnormal job and experiencing abnormal things that we don't normally have to process. So trying to deal with those that's normal. And I think that's why when you go back to the question about peer support, is peer support works because we're more likely to talk to our friend and our counterpart than maybe even a spouse, or maybe definitely more than a counselor. So, and talking is the best medicine when you're going through something that has something to do with mental health or crisis, is just getting it off your chest, getting it out there. That's why I think it works best. But we are all there for one another, and we all work in emergency services as first responders, and we all have our baggage that we bring to the table, and that affects how we handle stuff. But talking it out and going through those things is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, in fact, I know I don't take things home and share it with all of my family. Some things I do, but I'm very cautious because I don't want to traumatize them. There's things that we see in our job that they don't need to experience. And so there's always that disconnect of they may or may not understand, but it's nice to know there's information for families to be able to, hey, if their spouse or whoever, family member that's dealing with this type of stuff, you know, what they can look for, and then they can reach out to somebody that's, hey, I'm concerned about, you know, this person, and hey, can you guys go talk to them? And I know I've had that experience where.
And exactly with what you said, though, you have to be very cautious to some degree with, well, I'm not going to take it home. Sure, we wear gloves, we wear booties, we wear turnouts, we wear all those things to protect us and keep the bad things away so that we don't drag those home, right? But who's going to be the first person that's going to recognize that there's something weighing on your mind or that's bothering you? It's going to be your family, the people that see you every day. So if you exclude them, they're going to know something's wrong, but you can't totally exclude them either. So that's why it's important. To some degree, you got to give them little grains of sand at some point in time, because if not, that's going to become toxic in itself.
Right. Yeah. So you don't share them the whole gruesome ordeal, but yeah, they are the ones that recognize that, and so that's why it's important that we share these. You know, we have trainings that's for families, and we work with the families in these critical incidents. You know, things like this, so that they understand and know what they can do to help out too, and because they may even actually experience some of that same trauma.
Correct. They suffer through us for sure.
Right.
By our roller coasters, and that's why you were talking to Tami-jo and them earlier, and the Apache Navajo County peer support team. We have these critical incident stress information handouts that we give when we go out on calls, and there's also another one that is for families, and again, it's that same thing to give to the families to keep an eye out, you know, on their significant others to look for those signs and symptoms. But these pamphlets we also hand out and give out so that they can look at themselves. And again, look at all those signs and symptoms and see what they're experiencing or not. And the big thing, like you said, when she talked about having the good outlets, the other thing is just normalcy. Normalcy is your friend. Making sure that you're eating correctly, you drink lots of water, and just stay on that normal pattern, because once you interrupt that pattern, it's going to interrupt everything else in your body and your flow, and that just opens you up to continue to go down that rabbit hole, kind of. So normalcy is your friend, having outlets, and those kinds of things. Those are all the things that help, and we always try to encourage people to do.
All right. Well, thank you for watching Safe and Sound, and we'll see you next month.